Hello there everybody and welcome to the first episode of my new tutorial series for Songs of Syx version 61. I'm Icon and this is the successor of my old tutorial series made for version 58. So if you came from that one, there's a lot of new stuff in the game. I've learned a lot and this series will be better organized and there'll be more topics than the last time and we're going to cover more. So before I get started, a little bit about the organization. Every episode in this series will be focused onto a certain topic, roughly around 20 to 30 minutes each. And if there are any questions, if there are any topics that you want to see answers about, always feel free to use the comment section. It's the best way to go for. And yeah, beyond that, let's just get started, right? So we're going to set up a game. There's not that much to lose about the early phase. We're going to select random game. And I won't touch any of these settings. Small isn't as small as it sounds. It's a really large world. And we're not going to turn off rates, and I'm not going to tinker around with the settings there. I'm going to go race-wise with the humans because I have a lot of experience with that species, and therefore I think they are a pretty good thing to go for a tutorial series. So here, this happens when you have already titles from past runs. We're going to ignore that for now, because if you're new to the game, you're most likely not going to have that. So here you see the big old map that has been randomly generated, and our job is now to find some place where we want to put down our city. So when you place down your cursor, you see this overwhelming box of information. And for starters, the most important informations are the deposits. As you see here, there's 6 different materials, and while you wander around, the deposit meter shifts back and forth. So you will ultimately interact with these regions more and more, but if you're new to the game, there are really not too many things you should worry about. I'm going to explain how all of this works in detail later down the series, but for starters, I want to focus on the necessary informations. The blue grid beneath my mouse cursor is going to be the region where my city will be built at. And the region that's below your cursor does matter a lot. So if you're setting up shop at a big forest, you'll have a lot of forest on your map tile. If you set up shop near a mountain, you'll have a lot of mountain, and so on and so forth. So these things matter. So for starters, I'd always prefer a region that has mountain, forest, and preferably some access to water if your species likes fish. For my species, I know that they like fish, but it's not that super important that you go for that. Specifically, the deposits are way more important. We're going to settle down somewhere where we have a nice amount of forest and mountain. Forest is in so far really important because it's a very, very cheap and regenerating source of building material, and also a regenerating source of coal, because out of wood you can create coal. So we're to settle down here at this spot. I find that very attractive due to many different reasons. First off, we have a little bit of water here on it. We also have forest, and the deposits are looking nice. So I want to explain the deposits here for a second. What's also worth mentioning is the fertility, but first the deposits. So, give me a sec. Can we optimize that? Well, that's good enough. The deposits from the brown stuff is clay. Below that we have gemstones. Below the gemstones we have syphilon. These are more, well, rarer resources, and then next to that there's the meat and bones. There's coal, iron ore, and stone. These 3 things are really important. We're going to settle up here. Fertility is 71%. Try to achieve a pretty high score there as well if you want to go for agriculture, and we have 86% forest. That's a pretty nice ratio. Maybe a little bit much too, but there's always gonna be some advantages and disadvantages. All these other things here, I'll explain them later down the road. I'd strongly recommend you if you are a newcomer though, check that you go for a temperate climate, check that you have a nice fertility going, and check that you have all the items here on deposits. And the more you have on these meters, the better, basically. Okay, let's get into that. So now we get our map tile generated, and that's going to be where the entirety of the city will be built at. This is the monster we're working with. So you see a lot of rectangles here. We're going to turn them off for now. They're not that important. So as you see here, we have now forested area, we have some river, and we have some mountainside. So our city will be thriving around this tile. When you start out, you have to select where your throne's going to be located at. The throne is basically just where your seat of power will be at the beginning, and you can relocate that later. Basically, it's just your spawning point, and I'd highly recommend you to set up your spawning point somewhere where you really want to start out too. So we want to know where is a good starting point. So your first and foremost needs are building material, food, and somewhat close access to more sophisticated and advanced materials. Food is the easiest part. In this region, we can either hunt for food, or we can plant food, or we can fish for food. So there's lots of options, and since we have water not too far away here and there, this is already a pretty good spot. The other thing is, if you want to go for agriculture, you can toggle on the overlays here and go for fertility. Here you get this weird spooky map. And the game has the color coding that the brighter it is, the more fertile soil, and the darker, the less fertile the soil. So as we can see here, there's a lot of fertility around the riverbanks, and we have mediocre fertility into that direction. Here it's getting darker and darker. And we have a pretty nice fertility going on into this direction. So this location here is looking better and better. We got lots of trees here, which we can use for building. We got the mountain down here, which we can also use for building and mining. And we have arable soil over here, which we can use for the agriculture. So for me, this sounds like a really, really good spot to get started at. Looking for the fertility before you settle down isn't that super necessary, but I have discovered it to be a really useful thing to do early on. Okay, now we're going to place down our throne and start building from there on. So, game's automatically paused, and now we are in the real game. So there's all the stuff that we need right now, and now you're asking yourself, what the hell next? So in here we see all the tiny materials that we got here. So you start out with a support of stone, livestock, rations, clothes, fruit, and wood. So the stone and the wood which you have lying around here are really not nearly enough to build what you want to build with. The livestock, you can build up some pastures with that, more about that later. And the rations, well, they are your starting food alongside with the fruit. Well, clothes, well, your people will just put them on and will use them until they are racked down. There's not much to know about that. The user interface here shows you how many people you have. Here's your total stockpiles. You might wonder why everything is at 0, even though there's some stuff in here. That's because the stuff in here is not in a storage zone. This thing here only counts what's inside your storage zones. The rest of the menu points here, well, we have here all kinds of different metrics about the city, ranging from population, crime, workforce allocation, the temperature, your army. There's a lot of stuff, and we'll use these menus a lot. Over here you have your time settings and the time of the year. Here's the hottest new messages, and over here we have some new overlays and the building menu we'll find down there. We'll explore all of that step by step. So, speaking about step by step, the first things your people will need are now, like I said, food, but also storage. As we see here, we want to store our stuff somewhere. So we're going to build our first building now together. You will find a lot of different things when you click this button here. This is basically containing all of your different buildings. This area here is all of your infrastructural buildings, like all the stuff that doesn't produce anything but wall-off things, roads, light, and the like. And here, this is the command section. So if you're overwhelmed by looking for stuff here in the menu, you can also select the magnifying glass here and just type in warehouse. This does the trick also quite well. So now we get to build our first building. Be aware of the fact that building stuff in this game is a little bit unique, but once you wrap your head around it, it's quite easy, it's simple, and you can create wonderful and individual buildings for that. So, first things first, we're going to create ourselves a simple warehouse. So, I want to start out small. I can't stress out how important it is to start out small with your buildings, because it'll take forever if you build too large. And as you see here now, I just dragged and dropped the rectangle 6 and 6. Now, the white squares are the outside walls, and the cyan squares are the inside. Right now, nobody could get in there, so we're going to select the tool for doors. So, here, that's the tool for doors. We're going to set up a door here, and because I hate asymmetry, I'm just going to place down a second door here, and these will unify together. So you can set up, as you see here, at the throne room, these are 3 doors together. No building will function without doors making it accessible. There's lots of different options what you can do here. You can select what kind of material should be used, wood, stone, or cut stone. Here you can select whether or not it should have walls, and here you can select or deselect, add or remove doorways. That's what I wanted to say. These are some tools we're going to use later regarding the shapes of the room, and well, right now we're going to leave it like that. Later down the road we're going to work with different shapes of the rooms, but for now we're just going to work with simple rectangles and squares. You see over here the necessary materials, but this warehouse won't do anything without crates, because you see here storage 0. So you select crates, and now you have the crates on your cursor. So you can either enlarge or make this smaller by pressing E or the plus here. So you see you're adding up the size, and you can rotate these things with R. So you can also move these. So for starters, we're just going to put down a couple of smaller crates here. I want to use 1 line of these, and that's that. If you now right click, you undo your last step. This is also something you always can use in the building menu. So we've set up enough storage for 1,200 goods, and now we give that order to construct, and now we set up the time. Your people will automatically look for the next best job and lie on the grass and chill out a bit. No, jokes aside, they'll do the jobs. You don't need to allocate any jobs or anything manually. As long as there are free workers available, they'll just build stuff. You can see your current available workforce here. So it means 10 of 10 people are available as a workforce there. So Now we're going to wait a moment until that's being built. As you see here, this takes a moment while our fine dudes are working on this. So another thing that's really important to note, we might have not enough wood. So we're going to set up a command here to fell some trees. Boom, there we go. Just drag and drop. As you see here now, there's these dark blue tiles. Dark blue always means that the job is assigned, but not yet being processed. And as you see here now, we're getting the job done. And now I'm just waiting a bit. Now they're hauling the materials in there. And that's that. So the warehouse is now complete. If you click it now, you get an entire readout about all manner of different things. The flood of blue squares here you see is supposed to be the range of that thing, but there seems to be no end to the range. Its mesh grid is new. I didn't know that yet. So here we configure what kind of resource should be stored in there. You can only assign a single crate to a single job. So right now we have 5 crates available. So seeing what I see here, I want to have 1 crate for stone. And as you see here, 255 units have been allocated because that happens to be the amount of stone which can be stored in 1 box. 1 for wood. We're also going to put up 1 for food quite soon, but not yet. And what was the other stuff we had there? We don't need to put up a box for rations, because these will be just eaten up. We can put up a box for fruit. Let's do that. So we now have a place where we can store things. Our warehouse also has room for 2 more products, and you can also easily expand that by building new crates in there. More about that at another time. So the first things first, we want to now make sure that our dudes don't starve to death in the next time. So we're going to build up a farm. You'll find farms here in the agriculture tab, or if you just select here and type in farm. So there's 4 different types of farms. We're going to start out with a fruit farm because we already have some fruit, and you see you need fruit to sow out some fruit. So remember the fertility overlay. Let's use that one more time. So as we see here, this area is looking quite decently too. We shouldn't plant out stuff here. That doesn't look too good there. Okay. We're just going to set up our first field, and don't shy away from making it nice and large. So let's make something like 20 on 20. So you see here, this needs 6.25 farmers, and it has a fertility of 82%, and it happens to need 40 fruit. Just good that this is exactly the amount of fruit we got, so let's assign that. This way, we'll use our starting fruit to replenish our food stocks. This is, of course, only a thing which throws off some goods later down the road. By the way, if you're wondering how much food you got, you can mouse over here. Right now it does not show anything, of course, because we don't have anything in the stockpiles. Right now we just have to wait until the people have eaten up their rations. But that's going to be okay. Those starting rations, they really last a while. So, like you saw there, the farm, by the way, doesn't need any walls or anything. It just needs that rectangle to be placed down, and that's that. So now we invested all our fruit to gain more fruit, which is kind of a problem because we will run out of food from this point on, but we'll resolve that now. Let's just wait until that field's done. And now, with the field being done, as you see here, when you click it, 6 of 6 employees. Our workforce is now only at 4 people. That's because we've got some dudes now which are busy sowing out the fields. Now, there's two things you can do now to gain more food. Either you set up a fisher. You can set up fishery. If you have a body of water, that's definitely an option. Or you can set up a hunter. You zoom out there and click the show wildlife thingy. All those white dots are wildlife. Or, last but not least, you could also just select this here, show wild edibles, and then you can't really see them well here, the edibles, but if you hold down the right mouse button, you see there, for example, here's wild vegetables. You could now assign a job to harvest wild edibles, and then your people go forth and harvest some wild edibles. Right now they can't because it's not ripe, but, well, such is life. We're going to set up a hunter here first, because I always feel like that's practically a venue that's always available. So let's use our knowledge so far. We're going to use at this time this menu, so we're going to go for work, and let's see. No, that's not the right thing. Agriculture. So we're setting up a hunter. I love hunters because they are a really brilliant way of earning your early game food, and they don't need anything except for wood. So we're setting up the hunter's lodge here, maybe somewhere here nearer to the woods. As you see here, there's lots of white dots there. So let's set up our hunter's lodge up here. There's no particular need for being so close to our city. So the same stuff, 6-on-6 grid, installed some doors, and the hunter now has no crates, not like the warehouse, but he needs a workbench. So let's place down one workbench, and as you see here, hunters +1, and that means this workbench offers a job for one hunter. Here's also an auxiliary station. Auxiliary stations do one thing: they increase the efficiency of the workplace. You see that efficiency bar here? Boom, goes into 100% now. The larger a workshop gets, the more work spots there are, the more gimmicks you need to keep the efficiency high. But I'd highly recommend you to keep that efficiency at 100% because this makes your workers work better. Goes without saying, I guess. Alright, so let's wait until that's done. And we're going to set up a warehouse or remaining 2 crates now to store in meat, because that's definitely going to be available from that point on, and leather. As you see here now, the warehouse is also full. So I'm not happy with the amount of workers here, and if you look over here, there's a +1 below the human populace. If I double click this now, I could get a immigrant into my city, but I'll just right click that face now to give you that overview here. So lots of metrics, lots of numbers. We're going to go over these in the time being, but for now the only interesting thing here is the aspiring immigrants thing. So as you see here, there's the amount of immigrants that you want to have. You can either allow them going into your city by pressing here authorize, or by just double clicking that. I just wanted to show you where you can find it and where you can check out all the metrics about your populace. So immigration is one of the major ways of getting new people into your city in the early and mid phase of the game. You will have to wait a while until you set up nurseries and the like to make those new citizens by yourself. There's nothing bad about immigration except for the fact that it'll make your dudes a little bit unhappier. The more often you invite immigrants into your city, it'll always blow a little bit of a dent into the happiness of your citizens, which is shown here by that green bar. As you see, every race in your city has its own green bar. That's because everybody has his own preferences, likes and dislikes. For starters, we're going to build a little city that has only one race. You could, of course, do more than that. It's up to you. There we go. So the Hunter's Workshop is now done. And as you see here, there's automatically one employee assigned to that. And if you zoom out there, So here, that's better. That blue grid mesh here shows you the influence range of your hunter. That's how far your hunters will go with their job. It's only this body of water stopping him, obviously. So that's all we need to do to set up a little building that produces food for us. So let's fast forward for a little moment and watch this guy work. As you see here now, there's already meat flowing into our stockpiles. And up here, you see now we got food for 4 days just by the work of that hunter so far. So we're massively set with food for now. So the only thing that we lack now, for starters that is a place for people to sleep and to fulfill their other bodily needs. That C here is used for hygiene, so we don't need to put up a place where they can wash that quickly. But what's really important here is when you look for the civics menu, these are all the things. Civics is the area which makes your people happier. Everything in the civics menu is made to make your life more lively. So the first thing we're going to set up service-wise is the dormitory. That's just a place where your people can go and catch some Z's. So we're going to set that up next to the fields. This time I'm going to go a little bit larger than that. Let's go 10 on 10. And as you see here now, we have that little bright spot in the middle. There's this yellow stuff. That's because the building is unstable. When rooms are built too deep or wide, extra materials must be used to maintain it. So you either leave it like that and you'll have to accept that your building goes more costly, or you select the shrink room button and you place down one little pillar here. And now you see the stability issue is gone. The stability means that the building needs more fixing across the course of the time. That means it degrades faster because the building is under more material stress. But that's how you fix it. You just set up a little pillar inside there by shrinking the room exactly on one tile. If you shrink the inside of a room, obviously the game creates a wall. Don't ask me why. That's the easiest way to get it done, as far as I'm concerned. So we're now going to place down a couple of beds here into the dormitory. When it comes down to dormitories, I really like to make them a little bit packed full, because, you know, they are, after all, the homes of the plebs, and therefore they don't need to be that comfy or anything. So here it's the same logic. The beds provide service slots, the knickknacks provide coziness, which is the pendant to efficiency. The more coziness, the more happy your people will be sleeping in these beds. So let's fell some trees. And with that, you have the utmost basics of your city set up. Of course, that's only the beginning. Your people will need more and more stuff, and as you see here right now, we don't have any new immigrants. There's a red flashy sign the whole time on our populace. That's also because we don't have any sleeping spot, and so on and so forth. So there's still a lot of things we need to get done there, but we get in there. So as you see here, there's also the first harvest of fruit coming in. And let's check our warehouse stocks in a sec. We've also set up fruit here as a stockpile, so a free workforce will store that ASAP into the stockpiles as soon as they're done building their sleepy spot. Alrighty, so in general, by the way, I prefer to set up as few building jobs as possible, because building in this game is a very time-intense thing. You don't build stuff just so quickly here without any bigger upgrades or the like. So there is a lot of stuff concerned when you want to go for expansion. And since the limited workforce gets focus better if you have a low amount of jobs. I really like to do it this way. So, they're almost there. Look at them go. So we now have a sleep spot, and you will see now that the red flashy light is gone. So last thing we do before we leave this video now is we're going to set up, well, if you don't have access to a body of water, you need the well. But what we are going to set up here is going to be... Oh, the lavatory needs to be researched first? Okay, never mind. The lavatory was once something which you didn't need to research. Okay, friends, so I'd say that's enough for episode 1. We now know how to set up food, how to set up sleeping spots, how to bring in immigrants, and how to build buildings. I'd say that's a wonderful start. So I hope you found that helpful. Drop me your comments down below. Leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and of course consider subscribing. There's daily content coming up on my channel, and I'd love to see you guys there. Also, in the description box below, you will find links to my Discord channel, where there's a fine community, and also a link to my Twitch channel where I do stream quite regularly, and I'd love to see you guys there as well. So, next episode we're going to talk about how to solidify this into a real village, how to make it grow, how to fulfill the needs of your dudes, and how to make sure that your people won't die like flies. So, see you there, and have a good one. Bye-bye.